It's 3:14 a.m. The room is dead silent. You're staring at a crack in the ceiling that you've memorized by heart. You are exhausted, bone-deep tired, but your brain refuses to shut down. It's not thinking about anything specific, really. It's just vibrating. It's a low-level hum of panic. It's replaying a conversation from work 3 days ago. It's wondering if that noise the car made yesterday was the engine or just the road. It's calculating how many days are left until the first of the month. You tell yourself you just need to sleep, that you'll figure it out tomorrow. But deep down, you know tomorrow is just going to be another version of today. For a long time, I thought this insomnia was just stress. I thought it was normal to feel like I was constantly holding my breath. But I was wrong. This isn't just stress. This is a physiological state known as survival mode. It's what happens when your body perceives a threat that never goes away. Unlike a tiger in the jungle that chases you for 5 minutes and then leaves, financial instability is a predator that lives in your house. It sits at your dinner table. It sleeps at the foot of your bed. When you are in survival mode, your life feels like you are running on ice. You are putting in maximum effort. You are sweating, you are sprinting, you are trying harder than anyone else around you. But because there is no friction, no traction, you aren't moving forward. You are just expending all your energy to stay in the exact same place. And the worst part? Society looks at you running in place and asks, why aren't you moving faster? So, why does this happen? Why does financial stress make us feel and act less capable than we actually are? It's not because you aren't smart. It's because of a concept psychologists call decision bandwidth. Think of your brain like a smartphone battery. You wake up with 100% charge. Every decision you make, every worry you suppress, drains that battery. Now imagine 2 people. Person A has money in the bank. Their car makes a weird noise. They just book a mechanic. Cost 1% of their battery. Person B, that's you, hears that same noise. Suddenly, a background program launches in your brain. How much will this cost? Will I have to borrow money? If the car dies, how do I get to work? If I can't get to work, will I get fired? That same noise didn't cost you 1%. It cost you 40% of your daily cognitive energy. By the time you actually sit down to do your job or plan your future, you are already running on empty. You are cognitively bankrupt before the day has even started. This exhaustion leads to a phenomenon called tunnel vision. In biology, when an animal is in danger, its vision literally narrows. It focuses entirely on the immediate threat. It stops noticing the horizon. It stops noticing the weather. It only sees the predator. When you are broke, your predator is next week's bills. Your brain physically blocks out the future to focus on the present. You literally cannot visualize 5 years from now because your brain is screaming about 5 days from now. This is why people in poverty often make decisions that look bad to outsiders. Why buy a lottery ticket instead of saving that $5? Why eat fast food instead of cooking? Outsiders call this poor discipline, but through the lens of bandwidth, it makes perfect sense. You aren't buying a lottery ticket because you think it's a good investment. You are buying it because for $2, you get to buy a tiny moment of hope. You are buying a cheap dopamine hit because you don't have the mental energy to execute a long-term strategy. You aren't failing at long-term planning, you simply don't have the luxury of looking at the horizon. This brings us to a brutal paradox that nobody teaches in school. It is incredibly expensive to be poor. There's a famous economic theory about boots. A wealthy person buys a pair of $150 boots that last for 10 years. A poor person can't afford $150, so they buy the $50 boots. But those cheap boots fall apart after a year. So over 10 years, the poor person spends $500 on boots, more than 3 times what the rich person paid, and they still have wet feet. This applies to everything. It's buying the single roll of toilet paper because you can't afford the 24-pack bulk price. It's paying late fees because your paycheck arrived 2 days after the bill was due. It's the poverty tax. But the financial cost is only half the story. The other half is the willpower tax. We tend to think of discipline as a character trait. You either have it or you don't. But science tells us that willpower is actually a resource. It's a fuel tank. Every time you walk past a restaurant and smell food but force yourself to go home and eat instant noodles, you burn fuel. Every time you deny yourself a small comfort to save $1, you burn fuel. By 6 p.m., a wealthy person still has a full tank of willpower because they haven't had to deny themselves basic needs. Your tank is empty. This is the moment the trap snaps shut. You've spent all day saying no to everything. You are exhausted, your bandwidth is zero, and your willpower is gone. So on the way home, you buy the expensive takeout. You buy the video game you shouldn't afford. You impulse buy something you don't need. And then the guilt sets in. You look at your bank account and think, see, I am irresponsible. I am bad with money. But you need to hear this. That is not a moral failure. That is a system failure. You didn't buy that stuff because you are weak. You bought it because your brain was desperate for a release valve. You cannot white-knuckle your way through life forever. Eventually, if you don't have stability, your biology will override your logic just to keep you sane. So how do we break the cycle? How do we stop the cognitive death spiral? First, you have to completely change your objective. Stop trying to get rich. Rich is a distant fantasy that paralyzes you. Your goal right now is not wealth, your goal is security. You need to build what I call the fortress. The fortress isn't $1 million. It starts with a very specific, boring number, $1,000, or about 20 million VND. This is not an investment account. This is not money to buy a better laptop. This is your sanity fund. Its only job is to sit there and do absolutely nothing, so that when your car breaks down, you don't break down with it. When you have that first $1,000 sitting between you and the world, the silence returns. You sleep better, your IQ points come back. You stop operating in survival mode. But here is the hard truth that financial gurus won't tell you. Getting that first $1,000 is the hardest thing you will ever do because you are trying to save money while the poverty tax is still draining you. You are trying to fill a bucket that has holes in the bottom. So standard advice like skip the latte won't work. You need something stronger. You need strategic ruthlessness. Strategic ruthlessness means you accept being miserable for a short time to avoid being miserable for a lifetime. To build that buffer, you might need to go to extremes for 90 days. I'm talking about selling the furniture you don't need, picking up a second job that makes you tired, eating rice and beans every single day, canceling every subscription. It sounds terrible. It is terrible. But here's the difference. You are choosing this pain. It isn't happening to you. You are inflicting it on yourself for a purpose. You are creating a wedge, a gap between what you earn and what you spend. Even if that gap is small, it is the first time in years you are in control. You are trading 3 months of comfort to buy a lifetime of freedom from panic. Think of it like a fever. Sometimes your body needs to burn up to kill the virus. You need to induce a financial fever. Get angry at your situation. Use that anger. Every time you want to spend money to feel better, look at your fortress account. Watch it grow from $0 to $100 to $400 to $800. That growing number is the only dopamine hit you are allowed to have right now. Because once you hit that $1,000 mark, the game changes. You have a shield. And for the first time, you can put down the weight of survival and actually look up.
So let's say you do it. You survive the 90 days of ruthlessness. You hit that $1,000 mark. You look at your bank account and for the first time, the number doesn't make your stomach drop. What have you actually achieved? You're not rich, you can't buy a Lamborghini, you can't retire, but you have bought something far more valuable than a luxury car. You have purchased the most expensive word in the English language, no. When you are in survival mode, no is a luxury you cannot afford. When your boss tells you to work late without extra pay, you have to say yes because you're terrified of losing your paycheck. When you're in a relationship that drains your soul, you have to say yes because you can't afford the deposit on a new apartment. Poverty steals your agency. It forces you to be a passenger in your own life. But the fortress, that simple $1,000 buffer, hands you the steering wheel back. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. You walk into work a little differently. You aren't arrogant, but you aren't desperate, and people can smell desperation. When you know you can survive a crisis, you stop acting like a victim. You start setting boundaries. And strangely, when you stop acting out of fear, opportunities start to find you. This is the moment that tunnel vision finally breaks. You stop looking down at your feet to make sure you don't trip. You lift your head up, you look at the horizon. And in that silence, where the panic used to be, you finally hear your own ambition. You start seeing paths that were always there but were invisible to you because you were too busy trying to survive the day. You realize that money wasn't the destination. Money was just the key to the cage. If you take only one thing away from this video, let it be this. Money does not buy happiness. That is a cliche for a reason. But money does buy the silence you need to find happiness. It buys the quiet morning where you can drink your coffee without a knot in your stomach. It buys the mental space to be present with your family instead of worrying about the electric bill. We spend our whole lives chasing the big numbers, the high salary, the lottery win, but the most life-changing number isn't a million. It's simply having enough to stop the noise. I know the mountain looks high right now. I know that saving $1,000 feels like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon when you're living paycheck to paycheck. But you don't need to climb the whole mountain today. You don't need to fix your entire life this week. You just need to lay the first brick. Save the first $10, then the next $10. Protect that tiny fortress like your life depends on it, because the quality of your life does depend on it. You are not broken. You are not bad with money. You are just a computer trying to run complex software on a battery that is constantly at 1%. So stop beating yourself up. Plug yourself into the charger. Build your buffer. Reclaim your bandwidth. Because the world needs who you are when you aren't just trying to survive. Good luck.